Hello and welcome to another episode of Property Porn Stars, the premium property podcast brought to you by your hosts, David Lindley.
And I'm Matt Giggs.
And before we start today, a quick favour, please. If you are on Apple Podcasts, at the top of this episode, there'll be a follow button. If you could please press the follow button, that'd do us a world of good. We'd really appreciate it. And it also means that all the episodes are then delivered straight to your phone and downloaded, ready for your next big car journey. So thank you for that. However, on to the main event today. Our guest, our star joining us in the studio today is none other than Tanya Baker. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So Tanya is an incredibly interesting agent for a number of different reasons. But I think that probably the most interesting part for this podcast and talking about the premium market is her success on social media and taking a completely different approach to that, and how she's been not only successful in a local area, but then featured in the national press for properties gaining millions of views on social media, selling properties through social media, and with a combined following of over 120,000 people across the social media platforms, pretty much single-handedly, it's quite a feat. So we're here today to give Tanya a bit of a grilling on what she's doing, how she's doing it, and what we can learn about that for promoting properties in the premium market.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Simple. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's
Good
quite
to
some
have you
intro.
on. Well, I've been following you for a little while, and massive fan of what you do, and we'll dive into that in the podcast. So just tell us a little bit about who you are for our listeners, because some, and I mean probably very few, won't be on social media, but for those who aren't, where have you been? How did you get into agency? And so on and so forth.
It's so funny you ask that. So I got into estate agency through a friend of mine. I worked at a place called Shoe in Bluewater, and this guy and I started on the same day and was there for some years actually. And then he left and he said to me, I think you'd be really good as an estate agent. He was already an agent at that point. And he said, there's an opening next door. The independent agency next door are looking to hire. Do you want me to put your name forward? And he did, and I got the job, and I hated it. The guy he was not nice to work for. So I was only there for about 2 months. That was, 12 years ago now. But I liked it. I was paid £10,000 and I was given a year and £50 per sale on that first job. Yeah, wow, what a package. And so that was so Charlie Painter, a friend of mine, he's the reason I am an agent today.
Brilliant.
And if I hadn't taken that job at Shoe, I might not be here today. I don't know.
Funny how those paths sort of take in these directions. And
it's crazy.
That recommendation, he obviously saw something in you then.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we both really love people, and when we were at Shoe, we used to have such a good time because it wasn't a pressured sales environment. We didn't work on commission. It was just nice. You just showed people shoes and they bought them. But we all had such good synergy, and the team was lovely. So we made really good friends there, and I think he must have seen that I really.
So you went there, then what?
Then I left and went into events, and then a guy that I worked with there, his name was Gary, he said he left and went to Countrywide, and then I think everyone in this industry has worked in Countrywide. And he sort of said to me, it was about 2014, and he said to me, you should come back to agency, because events was like that, it was up and down all the time. And I was like, no, yeah, okay, so I went for an interview, then nothing came of it, and just sort of stepped back. And then I was in an admin job that I hated. I'm not made to be an admin. It's just the worst thing I could think about doing. And I got fired from it. I thought, did I get fired? Did I leave? It was a combo of things, I think. And then I went back into agency in very early 2015.
Countrywide acquire Hamptons? I'm trying to remember now.
They did. So
yeah.
So that was my last corporate job, was Hamptons. But then Sequence, Connell's Group now own Hamptons and Countrywide
right.
as a whole.
Yeah.
So when I was there, they had John D. Wood, Hamptons,
right.
Farrisatara, that one. Yeah, I think they merged that into John D. Wood, didn't they, in the end? So yeah, they owned that too. But Countrywide was a very big beast then. It was strange. Like 1 month I didn't get paid and no one knew what to do. No one knew who to contact. It was really weird.
Wow.
So, but that they just, it's a big, massive entity.
I was there until about 2012. I
Oh,
was
were
there
you?
from 1996.
Well, I was in Bromley and they had, I think, 4 or 5 branches on one high street. So
Different
they had
brands.
Alan DeMaid, Bearster Reeves, Andrew Reeves, that was where I was. And there was another one as well. And it was just crazy. Like, all these agents all competing against each other for the same, it was just, yeah, it's wild. But yeah, then I was at Hamptons in my most recent role, which was lovely. It was a nice place to work.
And now you're self-employed. How long have you been self-employed for?
This summer it'll be 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so to get on to kind of the chunk of what we want to talk about today, I suppose. So I think a big part of what you've done and done differently from the start has been around social media.
Yeah.
So talked about getting into it, what's changed, what your strategy's been from day one there.
So from day one, I was inspired by a couple of people on the internet, and I looked. So I quite liked Grant Bates at the time and what he does.
Brilliant.
So there was a lot of time he'd do it himself and he wasn't in the video. And I think it's really nice to see a person in the video. So I took inspiration from Summer Newman as well, and sort of put them both together. Yeah. So for the first few properties, or actually for the first year or so, was it a year? Yeah, just under a year. I just did the video and just put them out with music. And then last year, at the beginning of the year, I thought, I'll do a voiceover. I'll try it. I'll do a voiceover. And they just took off. People just liked listening. If there was a hook that was interesting at the start, people would listen even more. And the videos just went, and everything went like that from there on. But I found it to be, the feedback that I got initially was, everyone has, photos and floor plan, but not many agents have video. And the reason for it is because it's a big expense. Unless you do it yourself, it's quite costly. It's a big chunk of the marketing budget. But when you don't have an office and you don't have huge outlays, you can reinvest that money that the owners are potentially paying you to back into marketing. But it benefits both the owners and you. Yeah. So it was a really good way to showcase homes. And we as Brits, I think most people are anyway, so nosy. People love to see inside people's homes. So you've kind of got that really beautiful blend of people that want to see inside homes, but actually it's a really powerful way of selling because people spend more time on social media than they do on the portal apps. Yeah. I think the average is like 8 minutes on Rightmove, and average, my average is much higher, is 3 hours per day on social media. Yeah. So if you can put that in front of a friend or someone that might be thinking of someone else, because we're always thinking about the people we care about, they might send it to a friend or a family member. Yeah. And the feedback you get from these videos are, I had one lady last year, February, she said to me, I feel like I loved your video. I felt like I was being shown around by a friend.
Do you know, it's really funny you say that, because I watched one of your videos, and I suppose in different words, I say the same thing. It felt really personal. Yeah. And I don't know, it's hard to pin down exactly what that was, but I think for anyone who's not seen one of Tanya's videos, I'd recommend watching it, because they're quite different to what's out there in the market. That it's not a, here's the kitchen, here's UPVC windows to rear. It's very much like, here's what I love about this house, here's how I can imagine this happening here, look at this is incredible. And there's facts in it, but it's very much your opinion. And then on top of that, it feels, you've got a very nice voice to listen to anyway, which makes a difference.
Thank you.
It's very listenable. But then also it does feel like, because it's quite casual, it feels like it's a friend. It feels like if someone sent you that properties video and it was like your friend saying, oh, that's what I like about it. Look at that. That's really cool, isn't it? And you could imagine that would be a way a friend would communicate with you. Yeah. And I think that's probably what's set fire to so much of what you've done on socials.
Maybe it's striking that blend between it's about the house, right?
Yep.
And you're involved with the process of guiding someone around the house, but it's not about you.
No, yes.
It's trying to get that.
I'm there, but it's not.
Do you know what I mean?
It's
I think
striking that balance.
It's like that X factor that I think comes across.
And I think it's about, we all know how bad the reputation, people's perception of agents is. And in one way, it's horrible because there are people out there that don't deserve, like, no one deserves that kind of experience with an agent. And we've all heard of them. They're all horror stories. But for that reason, because the bar is so low, it paves the way for people that do really care. And when I put those videos out, I don't say, look at this is amazing, you should see this. It's not a sales, it's like, I love it for this, I really like this, and I think you could do this here, and I could see a family spending time here, and the bifolds open up, and if they're closed, the dog can bark at the squirrels. Like, it's that kind of thing.
It's suggestive of lifestyle, isn't it? It's that really nice connection, which is warm to the audience. It's less kind of in your face.
Yes.
And it's more inviting. So yeah, I'd agree with that.
Just to talk practicalities for a second. With the videography, you have a videographer, and then do they send you the files and you put the voiceover over the top? Do you record it there? And like, what do you have a proper microphone to do that? Because it's a very like warm sound. I think like that audio quality matters quite a lot.
It does. So it's a really good question, actually. So Matthew does the video, and if you could hear what's being said, it's like, lovely, yep, go into that corner. That's how it is. It's like a generic like guidance from Matthew behind the camera. It comes with no sound. And then I sit and I pick a sound that I think is nice for the property or one that's trending. And then when I do the voiceover, I have to do it in a place where the sound is quite like there's no bounce. So I do it in the bedroom. So I'm like talking to the pillow with the phone, because otherwise I've tried microphones. I've sat in my dining room, which is my office, and I've spoken to the microphone, and you still get that kind of echo. Yeah. So I find it best to just put the phone on a pillow, speak to the pillow, and it gives it that really soft.
I'm so glad that you said that, because I was like, how
David's been trying.
How are you just whispering sweet nothings at my cat?
You get echo otherwise. Yeah, you get and background noise and whatnot. I mean, it's really hard because we've got this the noise that goes off every time we open a door in the house. So I'll be doing a voiceover and I hear bing bing, and my boyfriend's opened the back door, and I'm like, I've got to do this whole thing again. And
then you've got to get into the same frame of mind, like really nice and relaxed.
Always when you've done a really good one as well.
Really, and it's right at the end always. It's in that last 10 seconds. I'm like, Nathan. Anyway.
So there's quite a lot of detail there to pick up.
But that really, like, I know that sounds like such a detail, but that matters so much. Like I really noticed that when I was watching the videos. It's like the quality of, and you're doing it to your phone. You know, it's not a microphone; it's just your phone.
I've tried it. So I bought a set of DJI mics, the ones that come in the charging case and whatnot. So I've got 3 of those, and I bought those to use for doing the voiceovers. And I just thought, there's nothing actually as good as this pillow. This pillow will do the job, and that's it. So I just don't use them anymore. I use that, and I've tried I think that they give a really crisp, warm, almost like an audiobook sound.
Yeah, it's like in your ears. I like the thought that after this podcast, there's going to be a slew of estate agents around the country talking into their pillows after this.
I've just got some images of some estate agents trying it, and it's just completely not working. And let's just go back to the moment where you say you took inspiration. I think there's a lot more inspiration out there for agents. The trick for most is then doing the next step, which is to go and do it. Mm-hmm. And like you've said, you've evolved by the sounds of it with your videography, with your videos, and you've evolved, you've tweaked it as you've gone along. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, so we kind of, I'm really lucky in the sense of Matthew and I have worked together now, it'll be 2 years now, around this time actually, and he's become like a really good friend. We get along really well, and I feel really comfortable. Someone asked me for advice yesterday, and they said, how do you feel about talking to the camera? If you watch any of my videos, I don't talk to the camera. No. And because I don't feel like it's... I might go into that a bit more comfortably in the future, but I don't feel mega comfortable with it. I don't feel like... And I feel like it's very presentery, and that kind of goes back to that estate agency. So
it's not you.
It's not me, no. And I feel like people hate being sold to anyway. So it's kind of that, hey, we're here to see... And that's just not me. So the style that we've developed is one that I do the voiceovers on, and then we have 2 different types of videos. So one is the walkthrough and one is the lifestyle, which is the one where, and the feedback for that's been lovely. Matthew and I just sort of put that together as a bit of a hybrid.
What's the difference between the 2? Sorry, maybe I don't know which one's
So one is the walkthrough where it gives a really good idea of how the house is mapped out, and we'll point to things like utility cupboards or understairs storage, that kind of thing. And then the other one is really lifestyle-y, so it might be me plumping cushions or me walking to go and grab a book with a cup of coffee, which is filled with water. Yeah. And then like me, I don't know if there's a dog, might be like sat with a dog on the sofa, stroking the dog, like that kind of idea of this is what it's like to live in this home. Yeah. And I didn't really think about that until we got feedback from buyers, and they said it's so nice. Like one lady the other week, she said to me, I showed my dad your videos, and he said, this is great. She's showing us what it's like to live in the home, what it's like to be there. Yeah. And that was nice feedback.
You're selling the vision, aren't you, ultimately?
Yeah, when you sell any home, you're selling the lifestyle. So sometimes we might have a property that's not overly wowed inside by interiors, but the location is incredible. So then go to coffee shops, film us go into the coffee shop and film us walking past the station sign, because we've got lots of those in London. All those sorts of things help to sell the lifestyle. And the amount of people, I mean, we sold one property to a buyer that was looking originally in Tooting, and they came back to the area, which was Hither Green. And this, I haven't told many people this story, so this is like
exclusive.
So this is exclusive. So Peter lives on the road that house was sold, and his house was next door to a house that was owned by an old man. Old man passed away. House needed everything doing to it, and we were selling the immaculate house across the road, which we sold through Instagram. And the house went viral. Like it was like 1.3 million views on Instagram and 2 point something, I think, or 1.8 on TikTok. It was a lot of views overall. And then the house across the road didn't sell until we listed our house. And then after we listed our house and it went viral, the house next door to Peter sold. And they moved in not long ago, and Peter got chatting to them, and they said, we only actually chose this house in this area because we saw the reel of the house across the road.
Is what it could be. the potential.
They thought we can't quite afford that, so we'll look at the area and see if there's anything else affordable. And so we sold that on behalf of Dexter's. You're welcome. So they
I love that story.
So he
invoices in the post. That's really good. That's really good. But there was a point though, just before, that you started the video journey.
Yes.
And this is the bit that I think a lot of people haven't really.
Actually, it's a good point. I wanted to pick up on that as well to a slightly different thing. And you said something which kind of clicked in my mind for a minute, which was, when people are in that position of starting videography, and I think maybe as an industry we're a little bit riding the wave of that at the moment, just as where phones get really good, microphones get really good, social media gets really good, all those things come together, and now is the time to do it. But it's a bit of a jump for people to make. And I think that if you're, because I've done a lot of stuff to camera, and it is incredibly unnatural. Like, we're on camera now, but it feels more natural because we're just having a chat.
Yes.
When you look straight down the line at a camera and you can't take your eyes off of it, and you have to look a certain way and act a certain way and keep your hands under control so you don't gesticulate all over the place. Yeah, have you seen that? I know what you're talking about. That's an incredibly unnatural thing because you have to really focus on what you're doing.
Yes.
And that does feel unnatural. So there's a higher barrier for people to do it. But I think doing videography in the style that you're doing it is a much more like accessible way of doing it. It's much less of a mental leap to start doing videography that way, because there's so many barriers are taken down to do it, and it feels more friendly than you versus the camera.
No, agreed. And I think that's what's nice about it. Like, I say to people, you don't even really need a big budget. If there's two of you, you can buy a gimbal, a pillow, pillow and a gimbal. That's all you need. A gimbal, and you can set that up, and you can create. That's how I started. A couple of my first videos were just done with gimbals, and then I did a voiceover to just talk them through the property and how it looked. And that's kind of enough. But if you want to make that investment, having a good videographer that you feel comfortable with, someone that guides you, because sometimes I turn up and I'm sort of like, what am I doing? And even if I had to say something, because I've done a few of those videos, just not many, I'd be like constantly, I'm like, Matt, what am I saying? How should I start this? And he'll give me the guidance. He's almost like a bit of a director and a videographer, which is really nice. And that's why I don't see it as a cost. A lot of agents I see it as an investment.
It's an investment.
100%.
Someone said this exactly. It's really bad. I can't remember who said it, but they said that the cost of videography is actually an investment in yourself.
Absolutely.
Promoter Property does an awesome job there, but actually it's an investment in you.
100%, definitely.
And the direction bit's interesting as well. There was there's someone that I spoke to, and they said they were like the opposite. So they were like, I'm the presenter and I'm directing it. So videographer, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. You've got the opposite one where the videographer is more the director. And as long as that role's clear, I suppose, is when it's neither here nor there, is when it can get a little bit of a jumbled up result. I know that the good thing is Matthew and I both know where we stand, and we can turn up, and sometimes we do, if a house is empty, we do a video tour in less than 5 minutes and we're done. And that's great for him, because the thing that might take him hours or an hour with another agent takes us less than 5 minutes, which is a really quick walkthrough. I know that if it depends on how you are. Like, some agents turn up and they don't know what they're doing, and he's like, well, if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know what you want, that's the main thing. Is I know what I want. I say to Matthew, I want this. There you go. And then he knows how to work with that. If he gets someone turn up that says, like, he'll get people say, oh, you know, I kind of want it like this, but I don't want it like that, and he doesn't know how to work with that. So I think where I know exactly what I want from each, like, I'll come to video tours and I'm like, this has got this has got that, it's near this, I want that in it. And Matthew goes, great, we'll do that. And I know exactly what we want. So let's talk about what you do on social media then, in two parts, in attracting valuations and winning instructions, and then from a selling point of view as well. So let's do the instruction bit first. Yeah. So you gather attention, you attract business to you, market appraisals, and you're instructed because of a lot of your social media presence. Yeah. So talk to us about that. How does that come about? What does that look like? What's an example of where someone's come to you just because of what they've seen you do through social media? So one of the best stories has actually resulted in a friendship of mine. That's nice. Yeah, it's really lovely. And I'm so grateful. The universe thing is really weird. It is, but I do believe in it. It's a little bit woo-woo, and I don't expect everyone to believe in it, but I certainly do after seeing some of the things that have happened over the past few years for me. So I put out, and maybe I should go back to the start with this story because it's quite cool. When I was at Hamptons, in my last month of working there, I met a guy, and a really beautiful house.
And I left, and I thought, I don't really want to contact him because I feel like that's crossing the boundary, and I've just left. So I didn't contact him. He turned up to view a property I had on the market to let, my first property I'd ever let. And he turned up with his mother to have a look at it for her. He didn't take it, but we got chatting, and ultimately he trusted me to let the property out. And it's a beautiful property in one of the areas we work in. And then that property came up for relet last year in May, and I did the reel again. So we already had a video, but I wanted a reel for it. So I wanted it to be in the format we do it now. So Matthew and I went back in the summer last year to the tenant's house, and we did the reel. And that reel just did really well because everyone loved that house and they wanted to see what it was like inside. It was architecturally significant for the area. And then I didn't think anything of it at the time. And about a month later, a guy reached out and said, hey, we're looking to move. We had a friend around for drinks last night and she recommended you. And she was someone who followed me from that reel that I'd put out for that property. So it's like most instructions that I get now, I can kind of go back and it's like a branch, like everything is branched off from something.
Yeah.
And when I think back to the marketing that I did for the first time when I first listed that house, I wanted to go all out. I wanted videography. It was a let. Like most people don't bother with rentals, but I thought it's really beautiful. I want it to be nice. I want this marketing as an investment piece for the client and for me.
Yeah.
Well, we had the marketing done and someone took it from the video because they lived in New York. So one, that paid off for the client, and two, it was something for me. Client was happy, reused me at relet, and then that reel went viral. Anyway, the guy that reached out and said, oh, we had our friend round for drinks. She's an Instagram baker. She's got 500,000, maybe more now, followers.
A what? An Instagram?
Baker. So she makes focaccia. Her name's Lace Bakes. She's really good. If you like food, it's dangerous food, but it's really good. Anyway, it was her husband that was reaching out and chatting to me. He was like, oh, my wife's just followed you too, and it was her. And then the reel for their house, when they instructed me and trusted me, they'd seen, I think, like 7 or 8 other agents, by the way, which was crazy to me because I'm sat there and I'm thinking, they've seen so many, they obviously like what I do. But by the time that I'd got to the appointment, because they'd seen what I do and they'd watched me on film, they must have felt like they knew me, or they must have felt like a bit more comfortable about meeting me, because when I sit down in front of people, they've already kind of met me online, which is really nice, because one of the scariest things about putting your house on the market is having that person that comes around in the shiny suit that tells you why you should use them. And I'm not that person. Yeah. And so they instructed me, and then their house that's the house that sold the neighbour's house across the road.
Yeah.
And that one house, I looked back and I didn't have this data until literally about a few weeks ago, and I don't know why it took so long for me to get it. But the Instagram, like the data attached to the post, that one reel gave me 1/4 of my followers now. It's just under 10,000 followers from that one reel.
So that was almost my next question, was like a bit of a cliche question, but then how do you go viral? But that one clearly did. So what was it about that?
At the time, so I think, and I've just done another reel to tell the story of how we sold that house, and that reel is doing well as well. I think there's a combination of things. I think the house it was a beautiful day. We had blue sky, a couple of clouds. Yeah. Not that you can pick that, but the house looked really pretty. They had some green foliage out the front. It just was square on. Funnily enough, I sold my parents' house as well last year, and they had a grey fronted house, and this was a grey fronted house. So there might be something in that. I'm still figuring it out. I think it's crazy, but and I picked a really nice sound at the time. I think it was Coldplay's Clocks, but it was a different spin on it, and it was the piano version. That was really lovely, and it felt like a nice flow for the home. So I listened to that without my voiceover, and then the voiceover. The things that I find work best, and I'm kind of realising this now, is this is what X amount of money gets you in X area. Yeah. Because people just like, oh my God, what's it going to get me? And people that hate London prices are just like, oh, there's just so much money. But they still feed the algorithm to put it in front of the right people. Yeah. So I think there's an element of Instagram is always changing, but there's an element of keywords as well. And I know that that's true because my boyfriend's from the Wirral. I put up a video once about the Wirral, and all of a sudden people were like, hey, from the Wirral, this is true, or something.
Just for the uninitiated, when you say keywords, what do you mean?
The description. So what you put in the description, or on the actual the text of the video.
Okay.
So the words that you use within the post itself over the video, as well as the words within the description, because I've found that people, it's like that place I told you about that first instructed me that was Hither Green. The lady who referred me to her friends was from Hither Green, and she said that it just appeared on her For You page, and that's how it works. Like people just see it and it just comes up.
It catches their eye, and that's how it goes.
Yeah.
And then, so when we talk about viral, because some of your posts, your reels, just put that all in the same category, it had millions of views, and by any measurement would class that as viral, I think.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah. And I suppose like there's an amount of, so I've resisted joining TikTok. Matt, he loves a bit of TikTok and doing silly dances and all that, but I'm not.
Silly dances.
It's not silly dances anymore. It was when I started because the girls said I didn't anyway.
But I've resisted because I've just been told that it is like, it's just the most addictive time quicksand of social media out there, so I kind of put it off. But anyway, I think that if there was just from the industry in general, I think there's a lot of people on Facebook, there's fewer people on Instagram, and then TikTok's probably the smallest take up. And I think that people get some massive views on there, but it's maybe the least adopted out of all of the social media platforms, perhaps in the industry. So when you're getting these high numbers of views on the likes of TikTok, for example, or even put Instagram in the same category, they're not just vanity metrics, are they? You've done business off of the back of the reach.
Yeah. So
and even if it's not the person, so sorry, one last point, and now I will shut up.
No, it's fine.
But in terms of the demographics, as a perception, Instagram or TikTok, they're not buying, especially premium homes, for example. That's the wrong demographic, but it's not necessarily them that you're talking to through that platform.
So I think that to judge any platform by its demographic is, you just can't. My mum's 60 and she's got TikTok.
Yeah.
And I had another client I shared a video with, and that I wasn't expecting them to have TikTok, but it comes up when it says so-and-so viewed your video, and they had TikTok. And I was like, okay,
wow,
so they do have TikTok.
Yeah.
So I think that people underestimate the use of the app. Like you saying it, I used to think it was a dancing app, like a silly app. But what it is it's almost like a hybrid of Google, but for video. So I've looked on there and I've gone best restaurants in London, or Spanish islands to visit or something. That you can use it for so many different things. Like, it's random, but I cook scrambled egg now the best way ever because of a lady called Cooking with Shireen on there, and she cooked it nice. And now, like, the information that you can take away from a platform like TikTok is just so powerful. So when people see and they go and they search London homes to see what they can get for their money, because it works in a way, if you have a video on TikTok, there's a search bar at the top which will give you like a keyword or a recommended search, so you can go and look at others. So in London homes, you might see my videos as well as some other TikTok agents that come back up as well, or generically under that, because of the TikTok's just so clever in that sense.
Yeah.
Instagram works really well. I think TikTok can be a little bit like the Wild West as well, by the way. People don't care what they comment on there. It's just ruthless. But Instagram is a bit more like civilized. Very civilized, yeah. And I think that the polished videos, that the lifestyle videos, do really well on Instagram, but they do less so on TikTok, because attention span's so short. On TikTok, they just want to see the walkthrough, and they want to know how much it's worth, and then they want to tell you how disgusted they are at how much it's worth.
So say that again. You said TikTok is a combination of Google.
I would say it's a hybrid search engine, because you can search for things. So if you today you wanted to go and learn how to bake focaccia, you could go and just type in focaccia recipe, and it would deliver to you all of the videos that have been posted by creators on there for how to create this loaf of bread. And it's the same for anything. You can, if you wanted to come to Canary Wharf for dinner, you could type in best Canary Wharf restaurants, and there'll be some food blogger that's created something for you to watch. And I just think it's incredible. We've recently got £1 million instruction from TikTok, and she's not on Instagram because she quit Instagram years ago. But that was very cool. She said, I found you on TikTok, and she hunted me down. I got the first email, and I was really busy, and I couldn't go back to her straight away. So the next day she messaged me. And she really wanted to work with us because she liked the video. So
you got £1 million. So for anyone who is cynical or dismissive, you got £1 million instruction through TikTok.
It and it works incredibly well in terms of, we have found buyers through TikTok. We had a buyer, it didn't go through, but this is a very cool story. That same house from Hither Green, Lace Bake's house, went viral, and someone in Colombia saw it. They sent it to their family member over here who was buying in Islington. They hadn't considered moving out to the outskirts of London. They saw that video, went to my feed, saw another video of a house in Nunhead, and they were like, that's really nice, we love that house. And then they came to the area, they explored the area, they liked the area. So then it was like house first, area second. And I find that in a market where prices are going up in lots of different parts of London, parts of the country, it's really beneficial for people to see what they can get that's similar, in a different area that they might not have considered before. And that, again, the videography just opens up that avenue. But the people in Colombia ended up buying, they made an offer and they had it accepted on that house. So that was a really cool story. It didn't go through in the end, but it was crazy how this video had gone to the other side of the world and then come back, and these buyers were like, yeah, well, we hadn't considered the area. So, and hopefully they will buy in that area when it's right for them.
Is that the same story we were talking about it stuff a second ago about the person whose son had seen the property, or is that a different?
No, it's a different one.
So what platform is this? Talk us through.
This is Instagram, but that was not so much through social media, but that was more through his friend had a really good experience with me last year. This has just happened today. His friend had a really good experience viewing and offering with me last year, and that sale didn't go through because the seller decided not to sell. And at the time, because the seller decided not to sell, I was gutted. I thought I've paid for marketing, but
they found you quite easily.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing.
It's accessible.
You can be found very easily. And then when you've got a good following because of the work that you've done and what you've put out there, they can see your content, your back catalogue's there. It's like, this is me, this is what I do. And because you do it authentically across the journey, it's quite easy for people to buy into what you do, and then they know, like, trust. You hear that a lot. But
yes.
That's where I think people are missing out by not being on these channels. I think most of the time they fear it because they're uncomfortable presenting to the camera or worried about what other people think.
Yeah, the biggest thing I think is worrying about what other people think. When I did my first voiceover, I was like, oh, I don't know if I should put this out. Like, is this the right thing to do? And I'm really glad I did, because I thought it was very laid back and it was very, I like this. And then I'd make like not a joke, but like a quite light-hearted comment or something. And I thought, oh, what are people going to think? But it was such a good reaction. If I hadn't done it, I mean, who knows, might not be here today.
I get the feeling people can smell, bullshit a mile away, and they can feel someone's sincerity quite quickly through video or voiceovers and stuff like that. So I think the message for the people listening to this is you've got to find your way of producing your content that fits with your approach, your values, how you operate. And that kind of, if you circle around the voiceover with the pillow, the voiceover, and the soft presentation that you present, when they come into contact with you and that continues, it's actually a really, I suppose, it's kind of reaffirms the process of coming to you.
Yeah,
because it's all aligned, right?
Yeah, and definitely. I think it all ties in with just, I think, being confident in who you are, and I used to think that confidence was akin to arrogance, but it's not at all. No. You can be confident in who you are and still be a really nice person. And I think that I've recently started, even every day I'm learning new things and I'm trying new things. I'm like, oh, do I do that? And the other day I put out a video about volume agents. I don't know if you saw it. I was speaking about how agents that work on volume are actually better for the agents. They talk about how great their volume business is for the client, but actually it's not beneficial for the client at all. Anyway, I put that out and I thought, oh, should I have posted that? Was it the right thing to do? I've not done a video on advice. None of my reels are actually me talking to the camera. That all the stories on my Instagram are me talking to the camera, and this was one I put out as a reel. And I spoke to a lady on Saturday, and she said, "I've seen quite a few of the high street agents." She said, "And I hadn't really considered your your comment about the volume side of the business." So she said, "I really found that helpful." And I took that advice from I can't remember the guy's last name, but his name's Ali, and he was on the High Performance podcast, and he's a big push of productivity, and he talks about
Ali Abdaal.
Yes, that's him. Yeah, and he said that he stopped doing videos to care about what other people think and started doing them just to help one person.
Yeah,
and I liked that, and I thought that's if this video walkthrough helps one buyer,
with speaking and stuff like that, it takes courage.
I think that I say to people that I still do videos, and I'm like, oh, should I post that? And there was one the other day where I was joking about my boyfriend calling my shoes Rumpelstiltskins, and I thought, do I post this? Do I not? And I just posted it, and loads of people found it funny. And one guy messaged me saying, "I love your authenticity, keep it up." And it goes back to, again, that people liking and trusting you. When you put these stories out, they might not be about estate agency, they might be about your day-to-day life. As long as you're not being nasty about other people and you're just being true to yourself.
Well, I'd say on your stories, having watched quite a few of them now, I'm a bit of a fan. But I think they're very real. You're quite revealing, quite honest about stuff when you're not feeling great and stuff can challenge you. I think that's an important message to send out there, because it can look very, it's nice to get 1.8 million views and all of the stuff that you're talking about. But actually, it's a challenging industry to be in.
It is, yeah.
And you have to be quite resilient. And you've got to overcome a lot of the mental battle in running your own business, being self-employed, plus having a life alongside that. So I think that's to your, credence. I think that's a brilliant thing that you do, because it's the balance between the marketing the lovely properties and engaging stories, all that kind of stuff, with actually, it's been a bit of a tough day today or whatever. And is that something that you just felt, you know what, I'm not going to miss those bits out?
Yeah, I think that we as humans, we like to know what's normal, and to see this kind of. There's one thing that I hate being sold to, and I unfollowed a TikToker that I really liked because she was openly advertising for, I think it was L'Oreal, it was a makeup TikToker, and I unfollowed her because I thought, you've been paid for that, but you've not disclosed it, and it really frustrates me when people do that, because I think it's unfair. We're so bombarded with ads, we're so bombarded with marketing nowadays, that when things like that are not disclosed, I think it's unfair. Yeah. So when people feel like they can trust you and when everything looks rosy on the screen, I think it's important that people know that actually it's not always like that. And because we've all felt like that. Like, I know that there are agents that reach out and they're like, I love what you're doing. I'm like, and they haven't seen the half of what goes on behind the scenes, when, like that client I was telling you about outside, and it all didn't go through, and you think at the time it's like, oh, this is really annoying, but later on down the line you realise actually something else has come from it, and it's actually been like a silver lining.
Do you find that, like, sharing that's a bit of, I don't hate the word therapy, but it's quite therapeutic in some ways, because actually you're releasing that bit of frustration or pressure sometimes? Or is it just, I'm quite happy to be open and honest about the whole journey of being an agent? I think
it's more to show that human side, because humans, people like to buy from people that they feel are relatable. And I think that one of the things that's missing in that upper end of the market is it's very shiny, it's very glam, but people see that and they're like, oh my God. And when you talk to them, you're like, actually most upper end, like £30 million homes and whatnot, they take ages to sell. And people don't see that, they just see the glam. Like, this job is, the stuff that sells. I mean, we sell a lot that sells, so it's so luckily not in that kind of. And I don't think that would be for me. It wouldn't be true to who I am, and I'm fine with that.
Totally.
But I think that it's really important when I post things where it's like, this has happened, or whatever. I'm very conscious with who I'm talking to, so I don't want to come on and have a rant about my day, but equally I want people to understand that there is another side to this, because it's like the grass. Yeah, well, the grass is green on the other side, but nowadays it's like, well, the grass could be green on the other side of the screen, but it isn't. And I think that there's so many young people that watch now, and I get a lot of young girls that reach out and they're like, I want to be an estate agent. I'm like, this is the lounge, this is the living room. It's very much like long nights, having conversations with your client on the verge of tears, and you're almost a therapist as well as an agent.
Yeah, 100%.
And so showing that side of you that other people might not see just helps for them to trust you and know you a little bit better. It's just like putting your guard down, because people feel like they can't trust agents.
Yeah.
And it goes back to being that person that they can trust, because they've got feelings as well. We're not like beasts that sell houses.
Something that one of the first guests we had on the podcast was Daniel Daggers, and he said something which I always think about, is because he puts a lot out on social media, and he said, like, you got no choice at that level but to be authentic, because you can't put on an act for social media and then someone meets you in the street and you're someone completely different. Like, it's just not going to work, or it's going to be weird or jarring on either side for the personality on social media or for the person that they bump into on the street. So you just got to roll with it.
You have to, yeah.
Can you just come back to something you said there about the value of homes that you list and sell, and they sell quite quickly? Like, my opinion is that I've always been more interested in the top 25% of the marketplace. The top 25% of the marketplace, but maybe the top 2-3% of that is actually really tricky. So I'm probably only interested in the top 22% or something like that.
Yeah.
Because you get to a point where there's a real sweet spot in the market where values are high, fees are high, and they still churn. You go too high and the values can be astronomical and the fees can be astronomical, but they're not selling because they are so unique for such a small audience, and that's not quite the market. What market are you in? Where do you sit?
I think in the areas we're sort of in that mid upper market. So we tend to get on average stuff that's like, between 700 to, we've just taken on our first listing, which is going to be somewhere between 2.5 million, 3 million the other day. So that's a nice big one for us. But I can see us. The conversation I had about the guy, his dad that he messaged on behalf of his dad, that'll probably be the upper millions as well. So maybe that is a place that we're going into. But yeah, so that kind of, but I mean, it's not so much about the value. I went out to a house the other day, and the style, that people message me, they're like, oh, I feel like our house is your style. And I feel like they feel like I'm going to judge their home. But I do attract a kind of style of home, like that kind of really lovely turnkey, quite quirky or colourful sometimes, that kind of home, which is nice because that's the kind of homes we like to work in as well.
And I guess you've got to say yes, but is that your style?
It kind of is. I mean, I like, my mum and dad had quite a neutral home, and I've worked in some neutral homes, and they're lovely. I think neutral homes do really well because people can still put their own stamp on them. And we've worked in some houses I've just sold it. Well, it will complete on Friday. This house has not been sold. The family have owned it for 70 years. So it's been a multi-generational home.
Yeah.
And that needed everything doing to it, but it had a really lovely story.
Yeah.
So I think if a home has a really nice story, even if it's not in line with like the kind of style that we have, it's lovely. Like, you know, I loved showing people around that home and telling them the story of that home. It's just nice in that sense. When something's got history, that's really lovely. Yeah.
Can I add, because obviously you said out before we came in, you had 2,000 followers not long ago, and actually it's grown quite rapidly in a short space of time.
Yeah.
How has that impacted the success or conversion of meeting people to giving you the instructions? So in other words, do they measure you on your followership as well? Do they look and go, well, she knows what she's doing. She's got 46,000 followers on Instagram. And is that quite a USP, a good USP for that? Or would you say I'd steer clear of that if I was you?
I had one of my first instructions I think it was £17,000 the fee, and I had like a couple of hundred followers, and it was through community. A lady followed me. She liked that I virtually staged the homes at that time, and she recommended her friend speak to me because she had an empty home to sell. So you don't need a big following to be successful. I think you just need to be so authentic and true and hone in on the people that you want, because your people will find you.
So it's going back to that guy that you mentioned about finding the one person that you can help.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Sticking to that mindset.
Yeah, 100%. And I know agents that have got...
It's niching it down a little bit, isn't it?
This is it. And I get messages asking if I'll sell homes in all sorts of parts of the country, and I have to refer it out to an agent that I'll trust because I can't cover everywhere. I can't be in two places at once. But it's lovely to be... That attraction is it's really nice to have. I think some people see like credibility in the amount of followers there are, but actually they never talk about. Like, a couple of people have said about, I think your following, it'd be great for your following, but more people look at the quality of the work and the stories as well. Telling stories is such a nice way to attract clients because they see. Like I put the video out of, did you see the one about the KitchenAid mixer? Yeah, that was from my friend Lacey, or my ex-client. And I got like 4 or 5 messages from people that wanted to sell their homes. That wasn't me telling giving a sales pitch. It was me telling a story. And people like stories. They like feel-good stories, and they like things that they can relate to. And so that works really well. I think that the followers are good for credibility, but I wouldn't say that they're the be-all and end-all, because one of my first instructions from social media was when I had like a handful of a couple of hundred followers. Yeah.
Do you think you'll edge away from the major portals because of the success of social media?
I think that when I sit down and speak to people who have come to me from social media, that one of the things they ask is, "Are you on the portals?" Or but I think that it's become, as sad as it is with how much money some of them charge, it's become like an expectation. So I think you still need it for credibility, and as well, it is credibility really to say, well, we're also on the portals. But saying that, like the past 3 homes we've sold have been through Instagram, which is cool. It's really nice, and you know. It's good. Again, it goes back to that opening up the areas that buyers might not have thought about because they're falling in love with the house first, area second. So I think, but that's where it's handy, and that's what people quite like. And one of the appointments I was on last week, they said, we see value in you opening this up to people that might not have considered this area, because I'm fortunate enough to work in an area that hasn't seen the growth as the same as the other parts of London. So South East is still so affordable compared to West and North London.
Is that an area that's going to kind of...
I think it will creep up, but then the rest of the areas will creep up. So it's like it'll creep up, but it will still be affordable, because we have tube links, but we don't have as many as other parts of London. But not everyone needs that. They just need to get into the London Bridge. or perhaps like the centre of London. So it works quite well in terms of transport links. But people just haven't considered that pocket of London. And it's nice to open that up because there is a north-south divide, and people think they have a perception of sort of South London and South East London, but actually it's a really lovely place to live. There's a lot of micro communities.
Yeah.
One of the other things I was just wondering, because when you put yourself out there like you do on these platforms, you get some abuse.
Oh yeah, I get a lot of abuse.
Do you?
It's funny you went back to when you said about building a thick skin. I've had last year when I did start growing, some awful comments.
Really?
Like a lot of, I still get them now. Like estate agents are scum, and I mean I get why people feel like that. I mean we've been in some chains with some awful agents, and I'm like, you know what, I agree. You guys, like they're awful, and I feel really bad that these good people end up with these bad agents. Like no one deserves that. Like it's really awful. But yeah, you do get, but I look at it now and I'm like, it's not personal. Like it's not me. They don't know me. It's just that they've obviously had a bad experience with agents, and that's not my fault. It's not their fault. It just is what it is, and we just have to just keep going on to try and change that perception and just do better and pave the way for better agents who feel that they can be themselves. And I will always say that I try to treat my buyers and my clients as if they were family members or friends, and when I'm sat down at appointments, it's never a pitch. It's always if my mum said to me, we want to sell our house tomorrow, and I said, right, you need to paint that, you need to do this, be way more brutal with my mum, but those kind of pointers that I would give as raw, true advice are the same for the clients as they would be for my mum.
Another thing, because you've brought the resilience part that we just touched on. One is getting stupid comments, hurtful comments from people that you don't know, and how you can detach yourself from it. The other one is it's quite a personal business, estate agency. It's quite emotive. It's a lot of emotions built up, and a lot of the time you are the reason. A lot of people take their emotions and their frustrations out on you. How do you handle that, being in a estate agency yourself in your own business? How do you handle those difficult situations?
I love that you've asked that, because I actually watched a video of yours that you put out this morning about not taking things personal. Yeah. And I took advice from High Performance Podcast, Gordon Ramsay's episode. I loved that episode. God, yeah, I've seen a clip of that. Don't take it personal. Yeah. Don't take it. It's never personal. It never is. And when a client has a problem, it's never. You have to really, really listen, and you have to accept the fact that they might have a problem with the process, and that's not personal. It's not about you. And they're telling you how they feel. And how it feels because you do the job every day, but you're just used to it, and you're not the one who's moving either, which is the one thing to remember. Just don't take it personally. And I've learned. It took me a little while to learn that. I really learned that last year. Yeah, it took me a long time. I had one client that called me at like 10:30 a couple of years ago at night, and they were furious about the process, and I was in tears, and it wasn't. It was just one of those things. You can't take it personally.
It's very hard when you. Indirectly, you're like me, you want to help people. And you want to help people because you get good praise or feedback, and it's
that fuzzy feeling of
totally like more than the commission.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
So when someone says they're not very happy with you or the process, it's very easy to slip in. And this was what I was explaining on the video, and I train this. There's the subject, and then there's you versus me. If you make it you versus me, and I take it personally, your approach changes to a defensive one, and you can end up getting a little bit in a this and a that, and
it's like a back and forth, and you're not working together to sort the solution.
Let's talk about why you're doing this. You want to move to this, and so on and so forth. So that's one of my strategies, because I used to find it really hard. Like I'd take things really personally because I know how much I give to people, and how I don't always maybe present it in the right way sometimes, but they've always got my best intentions, and then when it's not taken that way and it falls through or something goes wrong, it's that reaction to it, and you're on the receiving end. You're, well, I've done everything I fucking can, blah, 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 blah. So it's trying to move that away, and I think a lot of agents suffer with that.
Yeah, and I think there's part of it as well. If you can, and something we're doing at the moment is we front load the process and say, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. You don't want this to happen, so do this. Yes. We don't want that to happen, so do this. And it's thinking like 2 or 3 steps forward before you even get to the problem. I have a sale at the moment. We're on I feel like it's definitely number 5, might be number 6 buyer. We're nearly 18 months into the process, and certainly we're 18 months into the sales process, and it's nearly 2 years since I first met those clients. And last year, December, the last buyers for the property broke up. And I was like, I cannot go to the clients with this news. It's not fair. I can't do this. And I was like, I've sold this property how many times now? And the first thing I did was call the other buyers who wanted it and missed out because they weren't under offer. And they were like, no, we're under offer now. We'd love to make an offer. They came in under, I got them up. And then I could call the client and say, I've got awful news for you.
But
we've become really good friends, actually. So what I did is I called friends. We're close now after 18 months. Might move in myself. And I was like, I've got shit news for you. And she was like, oh God. I said, your buyers are broken up. I said, but I've got really good news for you. I've got you another buyer. And she was so grateful that I'd shielded her from that stress, because it was about a 2-day process. It wasn't something that happened in an hour. The buyers fell through and I was like, what am I going to do? Then I went back to the buyers. They had to think about it overnight.
Totally.
And she was so grateful that I'd shielded them from that mess. And that is what this job is all about. It's about shielding your clients from and the buyers from all of the things, because throughout the process, buyer and seller behind the scenes will be niggling about each other's processes.
Well, they do.
And you're there to try and no, they're not doing that because they don't see. So
I've just had one where they've seen the fixtures and fittings list and they're in a bit of a dispute, and it's become completely personal between the two men involved at both ends. Like, one's prepared to pull out because of the reply. And I'm like, so you're going to move in, you don't want to move into the dream house because of an email and a message. Let me just clear this up. So it's
go back to
So let me just go back. Hang on a second. And are you going to sit in the next house that you buy and think of this one?
Resenting,
It's so important. And I think there's so much to be said about depersonalizing those moments. And actually, from your own perspective, to preserve some of the energy that we've all got for this industry, it's depersonalize it for your own safety as well. Safety, probably a bit stronger word, but
mental sanity. And well-being, because there's so much now that has come out about how stress is such a big killer, and you can eat really well, but if you're leading a stressful lifestyle, all these things matter, and this is a stressful job, so you do have to detach yourself.
Well,
a little bit.
You do, you really do, and I think there's a lot of preservation that's required in that by just using a few tools like that to help you move it through, because so many people leave this industry because of the stress. And actually, that's probably a real shame, because a lot of people who get stressed because they care.
And I think it's so true. Anytime I think back to my corporate role and how I was caring so much that I was getting so stressed, and the answer was, well, just care less. It's like, no, I can't. Switch off. Don't answer your emails. Don't answer your calls after 6 p.m. It's like, no, I'm not that kind of person. I can't just switch off. I care too much to switch off, and it's having that balance of like, I really care, but what's the worst? Sometimes I have to reframe my thinking. I'm like, if this client disinstructs me, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? They'll move on. They'll move. Will it matter in 5 years? It's that thing of.
Can I just? There's something really interesting you said as well, just at the end of that, but also just going back a step, like the pre-mortem. I think the guy on Simon Gates's podcast, Damien Hughes, he talked about if he was an agent, he'd do a pre-mortem
about all the things that could go wrong.
I've done this before. Unknowingly, I've said to David and Sorrel, look, what do you think could go wrong? And actually, what could go wrong and how can we handle this is super powerful.
So powerful.
And I think a lot of agents could learn from that process rather than promising, I've got loads of buyers, Tanya, I've got loads of buyers.
Yeah, database full of buyers. 152 offers.
2 weeks on the market. You haven't got me a viewing yet. What about all those? Oh, well, they've all gone and found somewhere else.
They're all on holiday. It's half term.
But no, I think so you just reminded me of that and those solutions there to dealing with those situations.
I think when you're having those conversations, a lot of agents will glaze over it. I mean, it's hard. When you're in high street, you're taught how to pitch, you're taught how to go out on an appraisal, and it is to talk about yourself and talk about the business. And people don't want and need that. Agents think they want and need that, but they don't. They need advice. They need caring for and almost their hand holding. If they've moved 18 times, they might know the process in and out. They might know this, that, and the other could happen. We sell a lot of older homes. Damp probably will come up. Telling the owners, look, you've damp course that you've done this, so it probably will come up because it's an old home. And it's having those conversations at the start so that when you're midway through the process, it's not a surprise. And we're even starting to suggest, perhaps if you really have a survey done, and no, it's not ideal, and you're paying for something you probably feel like you don't need. But if you know what's wrong with the property, you can go and rectify these things, or at least then we can be totally transparent, a little bit like the Scottish system, and tell the buyers up front.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is we have raised our fees, but then we've also incorporated Gazelle.
Brian
sellers
Maxwell,
love
Sarah
it.
Edmondson. Yeah, I think
People love it.
It's an insurance policy.
It's so powerful, and it makes them feel like you're not there to just get paid and sell the house. You care for them. You want to make sure that their sale goes through.
Do you feel, is that part of your? So you're saying if you raise your fees to incorporate that as
we
such?
pay for that. I think it just takes the load off the seller. If you're going there and you're saying, oh, you need an EPC and you need this, and you also need to pay for this. It just takes one less thing they need to worry about.
We're going down that route, I think.
I think it's so good, and they care, and they're backed by the Law Society, so it's credible. I think it's brilliant, and people want the. I made a reel yesterday. I haven't posted it, and I might have to tweak it. But it's so funny when you talk to people about what's important to them when they move. When I say, what's important to you about the process? What do you want from an agent moving forward? They never say. They hardly ever say cheap fee, the least expensive. It's good communication, honesty. Best price. I want you to get me the most amount of money for my home. I want you to give me honest. I don't want you to tell me the property is worth this and then it not sell. I want you to be there, and they want someone that's going to be by their side and give them all the right advice.
Well, I think what you've done is you're reverse engineering their outcome. And
how do you want to get there? Let's work backwards.
And these are the things that you're going to probably consider needing, and you're able to have that confident conversation. Say, well, look, if this happens, we've got this.
Yes.
And I think that's it's more modern day estate agency. And do you feel with the self-employed? Self-employed estate agency has been around for hundreds of years. I know there's quite a big thing about it, but there's a lot of people that started businesses, independent estate agents. That's self-employed to begin with, and you build your teams and so on and so forth. But the self-employed model now is well talked about, well documented. Do you feel that it requires a particular type of person to come into that, or do you feel it's accessible for everybody? Who's going to succeed in it? Because I just saw a video this morning, so I can't remember who it was now, talking about some like 50% fail. Well, I'd say 50% fail in the traditional model as well as the estate agency self-employed model. So what are your thoughts on the self-employed model as such?
I've had a chat with a few agents who are amazing agents. I'm like, you would be so good at this, but they're just they feel they're not cut out for it because they love the comfort and security of getting a regular salary. Yeah, and it isn't for everyone because it is gritty, and it is the first. I'd say my boyfriend and I were talking about this at the weekend. My first 6 months, maybe just under, were brutal. I used to get really upset all the time, and there were times I went door knocking and been rejected. And one lady was really, that I ended up selling the house. She was really rude to me, but like because I didn't explain myself properly on the doorstep, didn't say who I was, and she said to me, she was like, bit of feedback you could just do with starting with the purpose you're on my door for. Her boyfriend called me. She'd had a bad day, but that's tough. It does make you tougher.
I love that. There's a bit of like a real knock, but a learn, and then it helps you further down the road.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I think I've spoken to other agents who I know are great at this, and they're just like, no, I couldn't. I just haven't got.
You mentioned gritty though.
I
love that. That's a great way of describing going self-employed.
You see, we talk about these parts, these aha moments where like, oh, it's not personal. When you're in high street, even when people call you up with problems, it's still you can walk away at the end of the day, but it still feels personal. But no one ever teaches you. They don't give you these life skills in high street to say, look, this is going to be hard. People are going to call you. They're going to shout. They're going to scream. It's moving. Moving is going to be the most stressful thing they're going to do. Well, it was one of three, isn't it? Death, divorce, and moving is like the most stressful things you'll ever do or ever experience. And they never talk to you about that in high street, so they don't give you the tools to be like a compassionate, understanding person. And a lot of these agencies run on volume internally as well. Like the staff turnover is so high, and they bring young people in who are hungry to get their first one series and get and go and
Corsa.
pop.
That shows you how long ago it was. We talked about age, didn't we? Corsa.
And they just want to come in. They want to sell property, and they're like, oh, I'm that estate agent, and they've got their trousers just around their ankles, that kind of, and they think that it's something that it's not, and they miss that whole people skill
empathy
part. Yeah, and I think I am the way I am because of my mum. My mum like has always been so caring for others, and I think that desire and that willing within people to want to go to the ends of earth to help people, to the point it puts you through your own paces of like the grit, which is like, you know, oh, I'm not going to get paid. How am I going to get past this? You know, I had some sales fall through last year, and I had to take out a loan, and I was like, this is it. It has to work. It has to work. What? And then there was times where I was doing fine monetary wise, and I was having a really bad time, and I was in bed. I think it was like till 10 o'clock one morning, and a client was having an issue, and I was like, this is. I've got to get up. I've got to sort this. I can't do this. I can't be down. You know, I'll pick myself up, and I've got to because of these people. So it's kind of, and equally I get those people skills from my mum, but my dad owns his own business, so I get that drive from my dad.
Yeah,
it is a resilience. It's
sorry about drawing you back to one of those darker moments, but I think it should be well publicised that whenever you see anyone that's got some modicum of success, they've just failed a lot more, or they've had a lot more pressure that they've broke through at any given point. Those moments when you kind of like, you're on your knees, your energy's gone. What gets you back to going, I've got to deal with this?
I don't want to go back to high street.
But what a great motive. Yeah. It doesn't matter what it is. There's got to be something that you can lean on.
I could not go back to because it's a volume business, and it goes back to those things. They don't give you the tools to say, well, this is not personal. People are going to do this. This is what, and you don't have the time to spend with clients. And it is a volume business, and all of them are like that because that's the nature of the business. They can't, and the people internally can't help that. I would never want to go back. It stressed me out. It made me so ill. I had therapy and everything while I was there, and it depends on who
there'll be
your
people
support.
In that corporate model right now who have got the nurturing skills, the genuine desire to help people that we need to keep in their estate agency, because I think that is the core ingredient. Again, I saw on a post the other day, there's not enough women in estate. Women make sorry, a bit of a general. Most women that I've come across make better estate agents because they understand first. They seek to understand. They've got the empathy.
Yeah.
A lot of us guys want to get to the deal, or we want to get it done and move on to the next one. And I think there's that real strength in that today. And I think somebody said it recently, I can't remember where it was from, empathy saves time. Because it's a lot front-loaded.
That's a good saying.
Yes.
It's front-loaded. It's like, I'll rather spend an extra half an hour really understanding the whole picture than try and spot one thing, close the deal, and then these problems come out further down the line.
Yeah, agreed.
And there's a lot of really good people that, I don't think the corporate world teaches you a lot of good things.
Agreed.
It gives you a lot of structure. It certainly gives you a little bit more understanding of the bigger picture. You get good training and so on and so forth. But there'll be a lot of people that I would encourage to look outside of the corporate estate agency who have got similar values and needs from the job that they would get probably working outside of that framework.
Yeah. Well, whenever anyone asks me on social media about going into a estate agency and where they should start, I always say just go and work for a high street agent, because it gives you the really
grounding.
It gives you you get paid to learn, so you're getting paid to learn about how the job works, and then you can build on that. And if it's right for you to do this kind of thing in the future, then that's great. But yeah, the corporate world teaches you so much. But it's interesting you say about good people being lost, because before I decided to do this, I was looking at jobs elsewhere. I don't know what I was going to do. Like, God knows what I would have decided to do. But I can't do this anymore because I cared so much that it stressed me out and put me in a bad place. And no one had an answer for that internally. But that happened to Peter as well, who works with me. Peter, we were both in the same office. He left because they did something, they changed pay and whatnot, and that's stressful. You've got no control. And I think the realisation, when I was deciding to do this, my mum and dad were like, no, you've got a company car allowance, you've got private healthcare, you get this, that and the other. And do you know the one thing that I was like really reluctant to leave my previous job for was I was in my 2.5 years in, and I thought, at 5 years, I'm going to get a hamper. I'm going to get a hamper from Fortnum & Mason for being here 5 years. And then when I was like, hang on a minute, this branch could close tomorrow, then my job is not as secure as it was. Yeah. So yes, I'm on a salary, but ultimately that could stop at any given time. What if the company closes down tomorrow?
Yeah.
At least if I'm out self-employed, I'm running my own show, and I'm in control of my own finances, and I can take on the kind of clients I want, the kind of people.
There's always risk, isn't it? You just have to choose your risk.
You have to choose your risk, and like picking that risk and saying, well, actually, I'd rather be in control of my own risk than put it in the hands of someone else. And you might not get paid. Yeah, I just thought I can go and buy my own hamper. I'll go and buy my own hamper if I really want one. Yeah. So
but your values aren't aligned. I think that's the thing I would say to anyone listening to this who's considering taking a step outside of where they are. Once your values are aligned, the role completely changes. The business completely changes.
Yeah, it does. And I think that's like one of the things we say when we sit down with people is we don't take on more than we can handle. And we do things like in the high street world, you're encouraged to push a certain solicitor and the company gets a kickback, but then the person, if you refer, you get that money.
Yeah.
And So I used to...
the one about a mortgage broker. Sorry.
So no. So it's a really good story. So my mum and dad, we used to use a solicitor in the branch that I worked in used a solicitor, and they were really good. They scaled, and then they're still good, but they weren't as good as they were before they scaled. Yeah. My mum and dad used them to purchase a house, and they weren't overly overwhelmed, overjoyed with the experience. It was just like okay. And then I was recommending them and taking the referral fees. Sometimes it was $250, sometimes it was £500. It was good for just recommending someone that was good.
Yeah.
And then one of my clients was using the solicitor, and she said, "I've had this happen," and I just thought, no, I felt really guilty because I'd been paid to recommend them. Yeah. And then I was with some other agents, and they were talking about how they don't take referral fees because it has way more weight when you're recommending someone. And I thought, that's it. We're not recommending for fees anymore. And we recommend an individual who works like us. She's self-employed under an umbrella. And she only works 4 out of 5 days a week, but she gets the job done. She'll reply at 11 o'clock at night. She'll come back to you on the day off when she's with her son, if it's urgent. And she just will go to the end of the earth to make sure that the process is as seamless as possible. She doesn't pay us a referral fee, but we'd rather know that our clients are getting looked after. And it's like that front loading process again. It's saying to the clients that one of the things we do when we get an offer is we thoroughly vet the buyer's solicitor. And if they've got a bad solicitor and you've already chosen to invest in a good one, why should we have a buyer come along and ruin the investment that you've made with this? Yeah. So we will then have that conversation and say to the buyer that who gave you this recommendation? Oh, it was the broker. Okay, well, we've worked with that solicitor, or we're not willing to, have someone with a, factory firm conveyancing company join. So your offer our clients have explained to us that they'd only be willing to accept your offer if you were to change to an actual qualified solicitor. We're not going to tell you which one to use because you can't do that and it's wrong. But here's a few that we know will look after you. And we're not saying this because we get recommended, we get referral fees for recommending you. We're saying this because these are incredible solicitors and they will look after you. And this is going to be the biggest investment you'll ever make. So don't cut corners and don't choose the cheapest because it's the cheapest. So those kind of things help.
Tanya, yeah, it's awesome. It is awesome. And also the fact that we could probably talk to you all day here.
I know.
Yeah,
so much value
I
out
feel
today.
like we're just getting going now. It's been a great interview.
I know,
I could spend another 2 or 3 hours sitting here.
But the clock is against us, unfortunately. So we're going to move from the sublime to the ridiculous and ask you one last question, which is our closing tradition on the podcast, which is that everybody has a porn star name. This is Property Porn Stars, and you are our star for today. Everyone has a porn star name, whether they know it or not, which is their combination of their middle name and their first pet's name. I know you've got a small army of dogs, so you're going to have to pick the funniest name out of that as well.
The first pet's name? Yeah. I had a hamster called Princess. Are you kidding
me?
Start.
Princess is a good
Great
start. Yeah,
So is it pet's name and then middle name?
What's your middle name?
Princess Louise.
It's pretty good.
Oh, that's all right.
It could have gone one or two ways.
A bit questionable.
Yeah. We'll keep the princess.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Where do I go?
I'm waiting for someone to
Is there someone
mine.
else with that name, Matt? Come on.
Mine's still Kevin Tiny.
That's bad.
It's really frustrating me that it's been since episode 1 and no one's knocked him off the top spot. But it will happen one day.
You've beat me on many other aspects today listening to you. It's been brilliant. I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. It's been really good.
It's been really, really interesting and so interesting to get into some of the detail of what you do as well and how much those details make such a big difference. And quite rightfully, you're successful when you're going viral. So thank you for sharing so much with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you if you've been watching or listening to today's episode of Property Porn Stars. Thank you again, Tanya. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and we will catch you in the next episode.